Hey, I'm Jeff Baumgartner with Light Reading. We're here in Philadelphia at the SCT Cable Tech Expo. I'm happy to be joined by Grant Spellmeyer, the new guy over at ACA Connects, running the show, taking over from Matt. So it's good to see you.
It's good to see you too, Jeff. It's an exciting time. I'm excited to be up here in Philadelphia, one of my favorite cities, to get a chance to visit the Cable Tech Expo and continue my journey of learning more about the cable industry.
Right, because you have been in the job how long? Not long.
Little over 3 months now. In the third month, actually. I guess I'm giving myself too much credit.
All right. Well, now you're this far in. Just quickly, just kind of a brief rundown. What's your focus right now? What are your priorities, maybe for the rest of this year, thinking into 2023?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been really busy over the course of the last 3 months. Started out with a kind of a barnstorming tour of the country with my predecessor, Matt Polka. We made our way around and talked to a number of members and people in the industry, influencers. We did our independent show in Orlando in July, and since then I have continued to move around the country and meet with folks. I come from the technology world, but not from the cable world, and so I've been concentrating on learning some new players and some new names and some new faces, but fundamentally, it's an exciting time of transformation in the industry, and I'm really excited about the opportunity to lead ACA Connects.
Yeah, and so you're kind of coming into cable, learning a lot about the members, learning about the industry. I mean, what if you had to pinpoint it, what's a big learning you've had about the industry, about what's important to the members, or how it's different than the mobile world, or for example? Yeah.
Well, coming from the mobile world, that was a very complex industry. Spent a lot of time working on spectrum policy. There's much less spectrum over here and much more focus on the wired network. But I've been impressed with how sophisticated the technology is. I somehow didn't appreciate the complexity that goes into, if you visit one of my members and go look at their head end, the complexity of taking video off of a satellite, translating it, putting it into a head end, joining with it, voice traffic, and of course, internet broadband traffic, and then moving it out across a network. That's a more complex equation than I appreciated coming into the job, and I've enjoyed getting to know that.
Well, you're definitely going to get a good look at it here.
Yeah.
I would think. You can see the complexity real close up. Yeah. Let's stick with mobile for a bit, right? Okay. You came out of U.S. Cellular, right, in your background. So some of the cable operators, some of the big ones, and some of the mid-sized guys, some smaller folks are kind of getting involved with mobile and wireless, to one degree or another. So with your experience there, how early on, anyway, have you been able to kind of weave that in, to the discussion, or some ideas for the membership, as they start to think about how they're going to approach that part of the market and how to get involved?
I've certainly found it to be an asset on my balance sheet that I understand the wireless industry, because there's a lot of intersection going on between the fixed broadband world and the mobile broadband world. I feel very comfortable with what is transpiring in the marketplace, and obviously I have members that are interested in moving at least in part in the wireless direction, and vice versa. So I've seen it as an asset to me. Fundamentally, what ACA Connects does is policy work, however, and to me, I feel very comfortable with the policy aspects around both fixed and mobile broadband. And we're going to try to, of course, we're entering a period of considerable government funding opportunities that are both offensive and defensive in nature for my members. And I intend to use my public policy expertise to help advise our members on the best strategy forward through that ecosystem.
Right, and that's one thing I wanted to talk about as well. You brought up funding, federal funding for broadband build-outs, a lot of fiber involved in there. We've got the BEAD program on the horizon. What are you doing to get your membership prepared for that? Because there's no doubt it's going to be a complicated process, I imagine.
Correct. Yeah. So we spent the first part of 2022 working rather closely watching what NTIA and the FCC were doing on the notice of funding opportunity that came out of NTIA, working with the Congress to make sure that there's appropriate oversight of where that's headed. Then, as the year has progressed into the summer, we had a tremendous focus on the mapping issues and the FCC's broadband data collection process that just completed its initial gathering on September 1st. So we have really concentrated on member education, compliance, helping hold the hands of some of our smaller members as they have worked through an intricate set of requirements on a first-time filing.
Right, because there was RDOF, at least the first phase of it, but this is like a whole bigger, different.
Yeah, this is a whole different animal, both in terms of the scope and nature of the data that was collected, and of course the size of the funding is going to dwarf what went on in RDOF. Right. And so the stakes are, and the eligibility criteria and the unserved areas are different, so it is a much different animal. We've certainly seen some challenges coming out of RDOF that we hope the FCC and the NTIA and the governors of the 50 states will work together to make sure aren't repeated again.
Right, with respect to what elements?
I would say things like a cardinal rule of government funding is to not subsidize overbuilding of areas where there already is sufficient
we did run into
levels.
Some of that. Yeah,
there was some of that, some concerns about whether the appropriate areas were filtered out in RDOF, and I think that's step number one, is to make sure that that happens. I'm trying to focus on making sure that our members have a level playing field in competing for the government grants. We've seen some early grants out of a couple of states, not of BEAD money, but of things coming out of other federal government programs.
Right. There's a lot of them out there.
Where there seems to be a desire of some states to just hand all the money in a state to one large provider. And my smaller members want to make sure that they have the opportunity to deliver the kind of quality service in their hometowns that other larger providers are getting the opportunity to do. So we're gonna try to message a little bit about, hey, don't forget about, there's some need for diversity of winners and providers and technologies and delivery solutions.
So just to make sure it's a fair playing field, essentially, for those guys.
That's right.
All right. Last thing I was curious about is with respect to like BEAD, right? I'm sure members have a million questions. What's the question that comes up the most right now, if you can zero in on one or maybe two?
I would say the number one question that clearly comes up is, how much money is my state going to get?
Okay.
That's the one that we hear.
What's the size of the jump ball?
Well, there's $42.5 billion of federal funding.
Right.
There's going to be a matching component put up by winners. So depending upon what that match is that the government decides to require, and I believe it's 25% at a minimum, that takes you up to like $60 billion at least that we're going to talk about being pumped out into rural America to increase speeds. And that's the biggest question we get is, where's the money going to go? Does my state compare to another state? We at ACA are doing some internal work with some consultants trying to estimate that. We won't know for sure until the FCC releases the final mapping product and NTIA does its work. But we're trying to give our members some advance look at what the opportunities will be in their state.
Okay. Well, it's going to be a lot to look into, a lot of analysis to happen, but look forward to staying in touch with you guys as you kind of work through kind of a mountain of a process, it sounds like.
Yeah.
But it was
Stay
good
tuned for 2023.
All right. Well, Grant, thanks a lot for your time.
Thank you.
I appreciate it. Good to see you.
Appreciate it.
All right.